two guys and a gal, talking about movies. Two guys and a gal, talking about movies. Two guys and a gal, they're talking about movies. And you know, they are really groovy. Two guys and a gal, talking about movies. Two guys and a gal, talking about movies. Two guys and a gal, they're talking about movies. And we know they are really groovy.
Good evening, everybody. We are here at our later time, and I love doing this later time. It's so cool. It's so intimate, you know. And we are here to do Star Trek movies. This is something where, of course, there's so many things to choose from. It's a whole thing. And I was like, "Are we going to do the TV shows too?" And the guys were like, "No, that would be intense." Okay, so we'll save that for later. The guys are going to talk about Star Trek movies. They have ranked their favorites and a couple of their least favorites. And I know everybody here is going to be able to chime in. Everybody grew up with these movies. Everybody has an opinion about Star Trek. I've never met anyone who didn't, but you know, I haven't. And of course, I'm prepared with my special hairdo and the background. And so here we go. So I'm going to introduce, of course, the creator of the show, Manny Zamora, and his co-host, Rory Penland. Hi, guys.
Hello.
We are all ready and raring to go. And I notice we're both on the bridge together, Manny.
Yes, we are. Here we are on the bridge of the good old USS Enterprise, NCC 1701. No freaking A, B, C, or D, or E, or any other alphabet.
Meanwhile, I'm in the cold recesses of space.
I love that.
I actually realized I had a yellow sweatshirt. I just ran to my door.
At the last moment, he wasn't wearing this behind the scenes. He just ran and he just did it.
I'm ripping off my shirt and putting on this orange, yellowish orange sweatshirt.
Yeah,
that's right.
All you're missing is the little Delta badge.
I just need the little Delta badge there.
I have a different color yellow one, which is not very Star Trek-y, but anyways. So Manny Zamora, because you're the creator of this show, I want to hear first from you. Okay. How do you remember your first introduction to a Star Trek movie, and what was it? I wonder if it made your list.
Yeah, well, of course, I was introduced to the television series first. The original series ran from 1966 to 1969, after which it was canceled. It ran for 3 seasons, and then in 1972 it was sold into syndication, where it became just hugely popular. Much to the surprise of the studio and the network. They were like, what? People actually like this thing? And then, so in 1975, there was talk of bringing the show back as a TV series. And so there was, sets were built and scripts were written. I mean, it was going to be an actual deal, because the studio that owned the show, Paramount, wanted to create their own network. Wanted to do a 4th network, and this was way before Fox did it and all these other things. So, and of course, they wanted Star Trek to be, the highlight of the network. But unfortunately, the plans fell through, and nothing ever came of that. But then, in 1977, a little movie called Star Wars that everybody thought was going to be a flop turned out to be a
low budget for the time,
low
right?
budget. They said, "Oh, some silly space opera thing. This is going to bomb harder than Pearl Harbor." and of course, it turned out not to be true. So everybody started scrambling for their own space movies. Said, "Oh man, we got to cash in on this trend." So Paramount,
and Trek by that time, had really. The syndication of the original show, and then they made an animated show after that in the 70s.
Right.
The fandom just took off, and they were having conventions and stuff.
Exactly. So Paramount said, "Hey, wait a minute. We have our own space thing. Let's let's crank out a movie. So in 1970, so the first movie came out in 1979, Star
79.
Trek: The Motion
Yeah.
Picture, and
Directed by David Wise,
uh,
of all people.
no, Robert Wise.
Robert Wise. I'm
Robert
sorry.
Wise.
From The Sound of Music and
Right.
actually, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Yeah.
Yeah. He was a old school classic director. Yeah, like I said, he directed the seminal science fiction movie of the 50s, Day the Earth Stood Still. And so that launched a whole movie franchise. It just took off from there. And here we are, 13 movies later. uh, 6 with the original cast, 4 with the Next Generation cast, and then 3 with a reboot cast. And so that's where we are today.
There's 3 with the reboot cast.
Yeah.
I've only seen 2.
No, there's 3. There's 3. Yeah. So we'll talk about that when we get to that.
All right. Maybe you can educate me on the third one, I guess.
Okay. All right.
I've seen the 2009 one. It's actually on my list, and
Oh, okay.
and then their version of the Wrath of Khan.
Yeah. Yeah. The third one was called Star Trek Beyond.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. All right. So you wanna start us off, Rory, with your top pick?
I think our number one on our list, and again, I told you I was going to go in like you do, as the movie is important to me on the list. Like, this is number one because it was just the best one, and number 2, and number 3, and number 4. Usually,
Okay.
I'll go in chronological order by year, but as it turns out, number 1 on my list, and I bet it's number 1 on your list too, is Wrath of Khan.
Actually, it isn't. It isn't number 1 on my list, but it's on my list.
Okay, interesting. The first movie to me only gets an honorable mention because it was interminably long. The story was, I'm not sure why they kind of went with that story, but anyway, it just didn't feel as Star Trek to me.
Right.
I didn't like the costumes in the movie. Most people hated the costumes in those movies.
Yeah.
And the 25-minute, shot going around the Enterprise. Okay, I like the Enterprise. Don't get me wrong. The Enterprise is a great ship, but 25 minutes going around that ship, we were like, come on, can we get to the business here? So anyway, Wrath of Khan comes out, and I mean, it is Trek from beginning to end. It's
Right.
Khan. It's gritty. It's, the costumes are amazing. They're my favorite movie costumes from the series.
Yeah.
Are those red tunics with the turtlenecks.
Yeah.
The puffy turtlenecks. They're great. And again, Scotty's got a nice kind of cool engineer outfit, for when he's in the engineer room. And the music by James Horner just really sets the pace for, the next couple of films.
Right.
And again, Ricardo Montalban as Khan, just awesome, just off the chain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So love the movie, love the script, love all the characters they threw in. They give Kirk an illegitimate son, or a son he didn't know about. BB Baish is wonderful as his love interest. That's fallen by the wayside. The whole Genesis thing, that fueled the story for the next 3 films.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just it is the most Trek of the Trek films, I think. It just captures the total feeling of the original series, but it's been upgraded.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number 1 on my list.
Okay.
How about you?
All right. Well, actually, number 1 on my list is actually Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home.
Okay.
And to me,
that's high up on my list too.
Yeah. Well, this one to me is almost, and again, this is just our opinions, but this one is quintessential Star Trek. Even though we don't have the spaceship, we don't have the Enterprise, the starship, and it takes place mostly on Earth. Still, the entire cast uh, gets a chance to shine. It's not just Kirk, Spock, and McCoy like usual.
Yeah.
There's an interesting kind of environmentalist save the whale theme going on.
Yeah.
There's a mysterious probe from outer space that's sending a message down to Earth, to the oceans, and nobody knows what it wants or why it's there. And our crew finally figures out that it's trying to communicate with whales, specifically these giant whale. Well, they're all giant, but a specific kind of whale, the humpback whales
Yeah.
that have gone extinct by the 23rd century. Exactly.
It's number 2 on my list. And again, I love the
okay.
story. And again, I love the fact they bring him into modern times.
Yeah, and
Spock is cursing like a sailor.
Spock is cursing like a sailor. Kirk is cursing, or as Spock calls it, colorful language.
Very colorful language.
Very colorful metaphors you're using, Captain. Gets to knock out a punk with a neck pinch. Just a really, really good story.
To the bus's applause.
To everyone's applause, yes, because he's being obnoxious. Just a fun story. We get some Klingons at the beginning, kind of, very angry because in the last movie they destroyed a ship, or not destroyed the ship, but killed the crew, and took the ship, which they wind up using in Voyage Home.
Right, Voyage Home is interesting. They're using a bird of prey.
Bird of prey, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And because they blew up the Enterprise in the previous movie in Star Trek 3.
I cried.
That was traumatic to everyone, to all us Trekkers. And it was the last of what's kind of become known as the accidental trilogy of 2, 3, and 4. 5 and 6 are totally different stories, but to me, it's just a great, fun action adventure movie. And like I said, the entire cast, the entire crew gets to have a great little moment. There's Scotty with he's trying to talk to a mouse, computer mouse, and McCoy fixing a kidney with a pill, and just little great little moments. So that's why it's number 1 on my list.
Yeah. And I love it too. It is just a great story. And I love all the cultural references, and you get to see them taken out of their environment, out of their time, which makes us appreciate our time more. So it's almost like, when it came out, people were noticing our world through the lens of people in the future, which just made everything more cosmic and exciting if you're living. And this was the first one. That's why I asked, which movie did you guys see first? This was the first one I was ever exposed to. And this is what got me into Star Trek, because the whales and the humor and the visuals, it was just such an engaging, fast-paced story. The plot was just fantastic, and it kept your attention. Even as a kid, it kept my attention from beginning to end. So when I think of Star Trek movies, this is the one that I always think of. And then Khan as well. But this one, just me being younger at the time, I really gravitated to this. It was just such a sweet story in a lot of ways. There was a lot of heart in this story.
And just a fun little note, the scene where Chekhov and Uhura are trying to find the nuclear vessels, the ships, and they're asking people on the street of San Francisco, where the naval base is. A lot of that was ad-libbed.
Really?
They were actually talking.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were just.
Yeah, there's a woman that had a great answer in that it was all completely, totally improvised.
Yes.
And she ended up getting a credit in the film for her little scene there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Very
that was
cool.
just a fun little trivia thing.
That's
Okay,
very
Yeah.
cool.
so
All right, so that's my number 2.
all right. So
Number
my sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Number 3.
Well, my number 2 was
Number
actually
2.
Wrath of Khan. It just barely squeaked out. Yeah, it was going to be number 1, but then I thought, as much as I love that movie, I really enjoyed Voyage Home even more. So
It's a much more
it,
positive film.
yeah, I mean, in all honesty, it's a tie. It's really a tie between that one
Mm,
and Wrath of Khan. Wrath of Khan, of course, was inspired by an episode of the original series with
mhm.
Ricardo Montalban as Khan Noonien Singh, genetically enhanced criminal from the 20th century, who is exiled into space for crimes against humanity. I guess he and 70 or 80 of his followers are sent off into space in the ship Botany Bay, and and like you said, it's a great film, and really the one that God.
Admiral.
Yes. Have you heard?
This is City Alpha 5.
Yes, very good, very
Just
good. Yeah.
unhinged.
Just
And the
really, just
creatures in the ears.
the creatures in the ear. Captain, they put creatures in our ears. Uh, yes. It is very cold. It's revenge is the best dish best served cold. It's very cold in space.
Khan! and I want to keep on hurting you.
That's not a very Russian there for a minute.
This fine Corinthian leather captain's chair.
It's very Russian. Yes, I agree.
Yes, yes. Suddenly, and Khan was supposed to be a Sikh. So he's a Sikh uh, general or whatever he was, leader, played by a Mexican actor, which was
Mm,
awesome.
mm,
But Montalban just, I mean, he really took to that role. I mean, he gave it
mhm.
everything, and he had that shirt and that was his chest. That was not a prosthetic. That was,
Correct.
you know,
He actually did some weightlifting for
yeah,
the movie to get into shape,
he got in
knowing what kind of
shape.
costume he was going to have to wear.
Exactly. So anyway, all right. So
Mm,
number 3 on our lists.
mm.
No, go ahead.
Undiscovered Country.
Ah, very good. Yes.
That's your number 3.
No, actually, it's on my list, but it's not number 3.
Ah, okay. It is part 6. Kirk gets to fight himself.
Yes.
I like the gulag space prison thing. I like the fact that Kirk and Bones are held accountable
Yeah.
by the Klingons for the death of a Klingon ambassador. Um,
Right. Yeah.
it was a little weird having who played the villain.
Oh.
Also from Sound of Music.
Yeah. Christopher Plummer.
Christopher Plummer.
Christopher Plummer
Yeah.
plays the bad guy.
Quoting Shakespeare.
Yeah. And there's a couple of really good English actors.
Yeah, David Warner was
David Warner,
the
right? I
Klingon
couldn't think of his name for a
representative
second.
that's
Yeah.
killed.
Right. Yeah.
He just
Uh,
passed away like a year
yeah.
ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's in a couple of them actually. He's also in the one that was directed by Shatner, number 5,
Yeah.
which didn't make my list.
Yeah. And actually, Warner, now that you brought him up, has one of the distinction of having played, I want to say, 4 or maybe 5 characters in Star Trek. You mentioned
I wouldn't be surprised.
2 in the movies, and then 3 on the television shows.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he played a Cardassian in
Hmm.
one episode. That's the episode with Kirk and the lights. He was the torturer. That was him. He played the human in Star Trek 5, Klingon. I want to say there was another character, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just 3. But anyway, So he's been in a lot of Trek.
The actors that played Kirk's son and
Matthew Buttrick.
I don't think it was ever said in the movie, but it was actually Khan's son, who's always by his side. He's just like a kind of a sidekick in the movie, and I read somewhere that he was actually Khan's son. They ended up on Star Trek: The Next Generation as a couple of characters, both of them. So they became well known in the Star Trek universe,
right?
For playing multiple characters as well.
Yeah, well, there's a number of actors who've played multiple roles.
Yeah,
but yeah, Warner's probably one of the more well known, I guess, because But Christopher Plummer, I never expected him to, that he would be on a Star Trek movie. But
Christopher Plummer was at a Dracula movie, as Van Helsing. He'll do it. If the paycheck is good and the script is decent, he'll be there. He'll do it. He's a good actor. He's in the Pixar movie Up as the villain in Up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, he's got a pretty varied career.
Yeah, he was in that awful. He was in that one with Marjo Gordner, Star Crash. With
My favorite character that he played was in Dreamscape. Where he played the villain politician who set up the Dreamscape program to try to kill the president.
Right. Yeah.
That was a fun role. He was just nasty in that. He plays a good villain.
He does play a good villain. All right. So number 3 on my list is one that you said you hadn't heard or didn't really remember, hadn't heard of, was Star Trek Beyond.
Okay.
And Star Trek Beyond is the third in what's come to be known as the Kelvin Universe movies, which is kind of a reboot, which started in 2009. The last Star Trek series, Enterprise, had ended a few years before, and so there was no Trek. And they said, well, let's go back to the movies. The Next Generation movies had ended, and said, well, Paramount decided to just sort of start over. But they didn't do a full reboot. They did kind of an alternate universe kind of deal, or alternate timeline. And they even brought back Leonard Nimoy as the original Spock, which in a couple of the movies before he passed away. But this is the third one, and from the looks of it, probably the last one, because they've been talking about doing a fourth one for the last 6 years, and nothing's happened. But anyway, so in this one, Idris Elba is the main villain. He plays an alien that's on this planet that winds up again. The Enterprise winds up getting destroyed yet again. And so Kirk and company, as usual, have to save the universe from the bad guy. So the plot isn't anything original, but there's a lot of action. There's a lot of great stunts and some real good chemistry between all the characters. Chris Pine, plays Kirk. Zachary Quinto as Spock, who might remember as the villain from Heroes, and probably Simon Pegg played Scotty,
right?
And Zoe Saldana, who's probably the one who's really made a name for herself playing Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy, plays Uhura,
right?
And so anyway, I just, again, it's a fun movie. It's a lot of action.
The actor's name, but the guy that does McCoy in the movies went on to do the superhero thing, The Boys. I think
The Boys. Yeah. He also played Judge Dredd in the movie. Carl Urban.
Okay. Yeah.
Carl Urban is his name. Yeah. He probably, of all the ones, all this new cast, he really nailed the whole attitude of McCoy, of the original McCoy. He had the accents, and you felt like, this is McCoy. So anyway, So that was number 3 on my list.
That was supposed to be kind of a prequel. Those movies, actually, right?
It
They show you the
it
transition between Pike and Kirk, and how Kirk beat the
the
neutrals, not the
Kobayashi
neutrals,
Maru,
the
yeah,
Kobayashi Maru, and
yeah.
I mean they go
It
back to the
is. It's kind
beginnings,
of a prequel,
but in
but
an
like I said,
alternate timeline.
it's an alternate timeline. Yeah, something happens in the first movie that changes the time and events of the original timeline. And anyway, so that was just kind of a way of just reintroducing Star Trek to another generation. But
Mm.
so number 4 on my list is, speaking of a next generation, little segue there, is Star Trek First Contact.
That's number 4 on my list as well.
Oh, awesome! It's the
Hmm.
second movie of the Next Generation led cast,
Hmm.
and has probably one of the, next to Khan, some of the best villain ever, one of the best villains ever created, which is the Borg
Right,
Collective, which are these cyborg, uh, machine, human, or alien hybrids that
right.
are just trying to take over the universe. Resistance is futile. Uh, and again, great action-packed movie, directed by excuse me, by Jonathan. Oh yeah, excuse me, directed by Jonathan Frakes, who played
Yeah,
Commander Riker in the in the show. And it's kind of interesting that some of the better movies are actually directed by people who are in the show. Like I forgot to mention that Voyage Home was directed by Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock,
yes.
and here's Jonathan Frakes directing this movie. And again, very action packed. Another time travel
You know
story.
why I'm laughing? I know you know why I'm laughing.
Why
Because
people?
sometimes when you give people from the show the reins, it's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Please let me do my own movie my way.
I, yes, yes. That one, yeah, yeah. That one gets a dishonorable mention here in a little bit. Um,
Where
but
no
anyway,
man has
yeah.
gone
So good
before.
time travel story to the beginning of, as the title says, first contact between humans and the Vulcans, and the Borg try to disrupt that to destroy humanity and end Starfleet and the Federation and all that good stuff. And they get to meet the guy who invented warp
Yeah, because
drive.
everybody collectively joins up to destroy the Borg.
Right? Yeah.
So yeah, one ship escapes back into the past to try to stop them from banding together as Starfleet, and yeah, with
Exactly.
first
Yeah.
contact. And again,
Right.
at the end, we get the little twist. It's actually, it's actually the
The
Vulcans
the
who
Vulcans.
are the
Right.
the first
Yeah.
contact.
So, which in the context of the show, I mean, that makes sense. That it would be the Vulcans.
And Jamie Cromwell plays the guy who creates a rocket that goes up while he's
Right.
playing Roy Orbison.
Yes. Playing Roy Orbison. Yeah.
I thought that was a
Yeah.
nice touch, but then
Yeah.
I'm a Roy
No.
Orbison fan.
Yeah. Roy Orbison. Yeah. So yeah. So anyway, so that was number 4 on my list.
There's a lot of good stuff going on in that movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
it had to be in my top 5. It was really it was the best of the Next Generation movies
Yes.
by far,
Absolutely.
by far.
Yeah. All right. So number 5 on our list. What's your number 5?
It's the Star Trek reboot 2009, the first
Oh,
one
okay.
with Chris Pine. I like the setup of the characters. Um, I like uh, the kind of relationship between Kirk and Uhura. I liked, or and Spock. This is kind
Hmm.
of a love triangle.
Yeah.
I like the tension between him and Spock in the movie, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
There was just a lot to like about it.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like he
No, I
was such a
agree.
rebel, which you expect from Kirk,
Yeah.
and how that drove Pike crazy. Um, I like the fact that they picked the actor they did to play Pike in that.
Oh, yeah.
He's done a lot of good stuff. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but
Yeah. Me either. But yeah, very good. I when I first saw the movie, and and I saw Pike, uh, and I thought, yeah, they picked the right actor, because it was like this guy had such an authority and gravitas. You thought, yeah,
Yeah.
I'd follow this guy. I totally follow him. you know, uh, yeah, and it's interesting. The very first actor to play Christopher Pike in the TV show was Jeffrey Hunter,
Jeffrey
uh,
Hunter. Yeah.
back in 1965, 64, 65. Yeah, who of course went on to play Jesus in King of Kings.
Actually played
And
Jesus before, didn't he? Wasn't that earlier?
yeah, that was his earlier
Yeah, his
role.
his
Yeah,
career just kind of went downhill, and he was doing guest spots on like the Green Hornet, and he ended up as Captain Pike.
yeah.
And that pilot didn't really sell.
No,
So it wasn't
no.
until that they came up with the William Shatner, and they made Spock look even weirder than he did in the original pilot.
Right, yeah. So
That it actually took hold. What was that first episode? It was it Where No Man Has Gone Before?
actually the first well, that was the second pilot. The
Yeah,
first episode they showed uh was actually called The Man Trap, where you have
that's
this
the one
the
with Pike.
salt vampire. No, no, no. That was the pilot. They wound up splitting it into two parts and using it as kind of a wrap in a two-part
Mm,
episode, because they felt that between the first pilot and the second pilot and then the actual shooting of the show, that so much of the look of the show, the costumes, everything had changed,
right.
that they felt it was too jarring. It would have been too jarring to all of a sudden, it's like, wait
Yeah,
a minute, why do we have another captain? Why does everything look different?
the
So they
cage.
decided, yeah, the cage. So what they decided to do was, well, we'll make it that this was actually like 10 or 11 years in the past. That way
Mm,
that can explain why everything looked so different.
mm,
So the original pilot was never shown in its entirety originally. It was only much later when they started doing a lot of the refurbishing, or remastering
mm.
of the show, and adding the digital effects and all that. They said we need to add the original pilot in there as the official first episode,
The
and so they
the
remastered that one.
creepiest thing about that was that they had old women playing the male aliens
Yes,
with the big heads.
yes,
It
that's
just made
right.
it look
That's
so.
right.
It just made it look so weird, so different. So
Yeah,
it was like a transgender thing that they were going with there. But
yeah,
again, they dubbed male voices over them, and
yeah.
of course
Give
they
them
never
the
really spoke. They telepathically.
right. Yeah, yeah.
And
So,
Susan Oliver.
oh, Susan Oliver. There's a documentary about her called The Green Girl.
Mm,
I'm trying to remember. I think it's either on Tubi or maybe Prime. I think it's on Tubi actually. Um, and she was actually she guest starred on probably every TV show in the 50s and 60s
oh
at
well,
some
yeah.
point. But
Yeah, she
but
was
a
very
lot of
popular.
people knew her best as the girl from Star Trek,
Yeah,
and that one scene where she is painted up green. She's the Green Orion slave girl
yeah.
in the pilot. But she was, yeah, and she just never really
Had
got,
a good look, as they say in the business.
yeah, yeah,
She's very, very nice and wholesome look, but again, she can be very sexy.
yeah,
So yeah, she was perfect for that because she had to go through several different looks.
different, yeah, exactly. So anyway, so number
But
five on my
yeah, that
list,
2009 was my last one.
2000, yeah, great.
Honorable mentions. Uh, Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
does have Klingons in it.
it's got the Klingons.
Christopher Lloyd is a
Christopher
Klingon commander.
Lloyd plays the Klingons, and
Um, they bring back Spock,
yes,
which we all wanted. We didn't want Spock to die.
yeah,
I
Uh,
love this one. I don't know. Yeah, for me, this would have been in my top 5, but again, it could just be the nostalgia factor. But yeah, it was like it brought to, like you said, this is what we all wanted. So I want to hear why you guys weren't that impressed by it. What is it that you weren't too taken by? Because to me,
You realize that Dan Larroquette from Night Court was also one of the other Klingons, right?
yeah, Dandler, yeah.
So
oh,
there was a
John,
lot of
John Larroquette.
John Larroquette.
I am
What did I
obsessed.
say?
I
He's
didn't
a
know that. I have to
fan.
go back and look at it because I'm obsessed with him. I mean, really,
Yeah,
that like
he
I know a
plays.
lot about that actor. I'm really into that actor. I'm an
He
actual
plays a
Yeah, they
Klingon.
fan.
threw a lot
He's a
of
Klingon
comedy in
named
with the
Maltz.
Klingons.
His name is Maltz.
I don't
Yeah.
remember that part at all. I got to go back and watch it. I
Yeah,
love him.
yeah.
How could
He
we go
actually
wrong with
he
that? Come on, guys.
survives. Yeah.
Again, yeah,
So yeah, they went with
the Klingons were. I mean, there was a lot of comedy there that I thought was just. It was
Again, I
appropriate.
probably saw these when I was younger and I haven't watched them recently. So I think a lot of the humor to me wasn't as goofy. Okay.
They killed Kirk's son.
Yeah.
You know,
they kill him
prompting
off. Yeah, they
those
recast.
Klingon bastards killed my son.
That was perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in Star Trek 2, there's a character played by Kirstie Alley as a half Vulcan, half
Yes,
Romulan character.
they switched
But
her character.
apparently she
Robin
asked for way
Curtis.
too much money to come back
Mhm.
to reprise her role, so they recast her
Savick.
with Robin Curtis. Savick, yeah, or
Savick.
Savick. Yeah, yeah. Um, who comes back and also has a little cameo in Star Trek 4. Oh, that's the other thing I was going to mention about Star Trek 4 that was interesting and fun is that this is the first time since the 60s that we see, well, not the first time, but we see both Spock's mother and father, or father and, well, yeah, mother and father, although not together, but in the movie, we get Leonard, what's his name? Mark Leonard
Mark
back
Leonard, yeah.
as Sarek, and Jane Wyman as Amanda.
Right.
She has a scene in the movie, and I thought, wow, yeah, because he had been in Star Trek 3, and no, he wasn't in Star Trek 2, but he was in Star Trek 3, and he came back for Star Trek 4. So, and he was on the
Mark
Next
Leonard plays
Generation as well.
Sarek, but he had also
Right.
played a lot of other characters in Star Trek. And
Yeah.
the one that comes to mind is he's in the original Star Trek movie, the motion picture, as the Klingon at the beginning, who gets
That's
zapped.
right. That's right. Yeah.
So he's the first Klingon we see that has the bumps on the head.
With the bumps on the head, yeah, the bumpy, the ridged foreheads, yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting, yeah. So, well,
And
I was
he's
going to say
another one of
my
those actors that it was a villain on just about every show in the
Yeah.
60s. Mission Impossible, Wild Wild West. He was always popping up on those shows.
exactly. He almost got the role of Spock in the original series as well. So, and but he wound up being cast as his father. So, anyway, even though there's like 2 years difference in their age, apparently 2 or 3, yeah, kind of
Well,
like
put gray hair on him. That'll make
yeah.
it work.
But he had that wonderful voice, and again that sense of gravitas that you believe that he was an older, that this would be Spock's father, Ambassador Sarek. So number 5 on my list was actually the Undiscovered Country. So
Yeah.
which we already talked about.
What was your favorite parts from that?
I like the parts where Kirk and McCoy are on Rurapente, where they're on the Klingon prison planet, and David Bowie's wife Iman plays the shape-shifting alien.
Right.
Who you mentioned Kirk fighting himself. She shifts into him and they wind up fighting, and it also has a lot of humor in it. And it has a very brief cameo from oh, what's his name? Not Christopher. Oh gosh, he's a famous actor. Great, now I forgot.
Which character did he play?
He played like just a bridge officer. There's just a quick scene where he talks to Sulu, and well, there's a message from Starfleet or something. It's just a little cameo. And unfortunately now I'm blanking on the guy's name.
For some
Okay.
reason, Alan Ruck, who played a starship officer in one of the movies, I can't remember.
Yeah,
which
he
one.
was on. Yeah, he was in Generations. No. Oh, he played. Let me see if I can. I should just look it up on IMDb. But he was in. Oh, he was in Heathers.
Oh,
with Winona Ryder.
Christian Slater.
Christian Slater. Yeah, I knew it started with a C.
Slater. That's
Christian
right.
Slater has a very quick cameo in
That's right.
Star Trek in Voyage Home.
He's almost in the shadows.
Yeah, but the voice immediately.
He's waking up somebody, or
it was he was waking Sulu up. It was captain of another ship, the Excelsior. But so anyway, so that's my number 5.
Yeah, I love the beginning scene where the accident happens and Sulu's ship gets the Excelsior gets hit with some of the shock waves.
Yeah, and they recreated that whole thing.
My.
Yeah, oh my. And they recreated that whole scene and kind of what happens after on an episode of Star Trek Voyager as kind of an anniversary episode.
Ooh.
Yeah, and they bring everybody back. And it's part of this weird plot where one of the characters is having visions of something happening, and because he was apparently on the bridge or on the ship at the time when that happened. He's a Vulcan character, so he's very long lived, and he was apparently on the Excelsior when all that happened, and so they kind of recreate that whole scene.
Oh,
and
wow.
Chekhov's there. They bring back George Takei and Grace Lee Whitney as Commander Rand. Has a couple of scenes in that as well.
Wow.
So,
anyway,
yeah,
I like when the movie's characters cross over with the TV shows. I like it when Scotty was on Next Generation.
Right.
McCoy was on the first episode.
He was on the very first. Yeah, he was in the pilot episode, and of course Leonard Nimoy.
And Sulu came on for an episode, I believe.
Yeah.
So
Sulu did?
It might have been one of the other shows.
It might have been. Yeah. No, Sulu. Like I said, Sulu was on Voyager.
Yeah, I know. He played a prominent guest on one of the shows.
Yeah.
I wanted to say it wasn't the Next Generation, but it might have been one of the others.
Yeah.
I thought it was worth mentioning. Star Trek Continues.
Yeah.
These guys in Atlanta completely rebuilt the sets for Star Trek, the original show. They somehow got the schematics to do it, and they somehow figured out the lighting and how people shot stuff in the 1960s. And they created either 6 or 7 episodes of what really looks like the original show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vic Mignogna. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but he's the guy behind it, basically.
Yeah.
And it was all fan made, and there was no funding. Other than donations, so that they could get past the fact that, hey, we're doing a fan made project. This is something special. It's going to bridge the old show with the movie, the first movie, so that you kind of get a timeline in between what's going on. And I can't rave about it enough. If you're a Star Trek fan and you haven't seen it, you got to treat yourself. And they got guest stars from the original show on. They
Yeah.
got Lou Ferrigno to come on and do an episode, which involved
Right.
the Green Slave Girls.
Yes. Yes.
And it's just an amazing achievement. And right now, the guys, they still have the set set up in Atlanta. You can go visit and make donations
Yeah.
to
I
them.
did- yeah.
You
I
know,
could
and
take a
take pictures
tour
on
there.
the
Yeah.
original bridge set in the
Right. Yeah.
hallways and what have you. Just a really cool thing. I wish he would do other TV shows.
Yeah.
Like I wish they would do like more episodes of the Green Hornet or Batman or something from the '60s. You know.
Right. Bring the yeah. 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 Star Trek Continues. Great show. There's another one too called Star Trek New Voyages. That has a whole different, but very similar thing. You know, they recreated some of the early episodes, though. You could tell they were operating at a very very low budget,
Yeah.
and so the sets.
Oh, they also got James Doohan's son to play Scotty, which is
Yes.
really creepy because he looks just like him.
Yeah.
He looks a lot like his dad.
Yeah. And he also did a very brief cameo in Star Trek 2009
Mm.
on in the transporter room with Simon Pegg. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, he obviously wasn't playing Scotty because Pegg was, but he was there. But yeah, he gets to play Scotty on another show, which is excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if one of the most interesting things about James Doohan is he was a bona fide war hero. He served in the Canadian Army. He was Canadian. And actually had one of his fingers was shot off. So he's actually missing a finger in one of his hands. But you never know it because he always manages to position himself where you don't see that. Yeah, to be able to shoot around.
They did the same thing with Gary Berghoff from MASH. He's missing a finger.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. The guy, Doohan, he was shot multiple times. Like I said, had his finger shot off. Went and rescued a bunch of his buddies, and of course, all this happened during World War II. So yeah, I was like, damn. And the man, and got to mention the man who actually started the whole thing, created the show.
Right.
Gene Roddenberry was from Texas. He was a pilot during World War II. He flew in the Pacific Theater, became a commercial pilot after the war, and flew, you know, commercial jets in the 50s, and actually survived a crash in like Jordan or somewhere in the Middle East. Then came back home, moved to Los Angeles, became a motorcycle cop, became a policeman before he started writing for television, and worked his way up to producer, and that's why he was able to create Star Trek. And actually, originally, he had done a show called The Lieutenant with Gary Lockwood that only went one season. And so the studio said, "Hey, you know, got anything else?" And he said, "Yeah, I got this little sci-fi thing that I've been working on." But they passed on it. They thought, "Nah, it's going to be too expensive to do that." So he shopped it around for every studio he could, and finally, he talked to Lucille Ball, of all people. Lucy, of I Love Lucy.
Okay. Can I stop you there?
Sure.
Because there's another story in here.
Okay.
He went to CBS.
Right.
They had a long meeting with him, hours.
Yes.
They had a long meeting with him, picked his brain about everything. Well, how are you going to do this? How are you going to keep the funds down, you know, with this? Oh, well, you know, we have them on the same ship, and we just have, you know, sets of the inside of the ship, and we have minimal sets for the outside of the planets, and we can kind of change things around. He told them everything. He told everything about how to make a space show, and they turned around and made Lost in Space.
Right.
Told them, thank you very much. And they made their own show called Lost in Space.
Lost in Space, exactly. Yeah.
But you're right. He did end up going to Lucille Ball and Desi
Lucille
Lou
Ball.
Productions.
She was trying to sell. She was trying to sell the studio, and she wanted to make sure that she could prove that her studio was capable of handling a big production. And so she's like, "Yeah, you can do your little space show over here." You know, terrible Lucy impression there. And
Oh no,
and
there's Klingons. Wah!
Khan. No. So yeah, so thanks to Lucy, we have Star Trek. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and
She
that's
gave them the chance they needed,
yeah, she gave him a chance and said,
and
yeah,
Mission Impossible.
and Mission Impossible as well. That's right.
Mhm.
They were doing the show. In fact, after Star Trek ended, Leonard Nimoy went to work on Mission Impossible to
Correct.
replace
Martin Landau.
Martin Landau and Barbara Bain. Yeah,
The Martin Landau Barbara Bain incident. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh wow, Hollywood.
yeah.
But that show was getting really expensive. They were spending a lot of money on that show.
Yeah.
Herb Solo. Was it Herb Solo that did that show?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he was just commanding, higher money for to do these James Bond like missions, and eventually,
no. Herb Solo produced Star Trek. Was it Bruce Geller, I believe?
You're right. Bruce Geller was the one
Produced
that
Mission
created
Impossible.
Mission
Yeah,
Impossible.
yeah. Because you could tell. I mean, they wanted all these exotic locations.
Right.
Everything was filmed in
So
California.
they allowed it for a while because the show was really kicking butt on
Yeah.
ratings and TV, and they were getting good money from the sponsors. But eventually, they had to start scaling down the prices. And when Landau heard that Peter Graves, who replaced the original number one,
Stephen Hill.
Stephen Hill, his religion was cutting into Showtime because he had to stop to pray, and he was very Jewish, Orthodox Jewish, and that ended up he stopped being in all of the episodes for the full episode. And eventually, just like they were like, we got to replace this guy. We can't do a show without the star. We got to replace him. So they replaced him with Peter Graves. Peter Graves had a contract that said he had to have top billing, and he commanded a certain price, which was more than what Landau was getting, and that caused a huge rift. And Landau just decided not to show up for work, and Barbara didn't show up for work, and they got canned from the show.
Okay.
So to replace him, they brought in, Leonard Nimoy had just finished Spock, so they brought Nimoy in as the Great Paris.
Just walked across the hall.
same kind of character. I do costumes and acting.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah,
I mean, they kept the show going for another 3 seasons, and then they're bringing in Sam Elliott.
Yeah. But I think there was only 2 actors that stayed through the entire series from beginning to end.
Peter Lupus.
Peter Lupus and what's his name? Man, I just blanking out on people's names.
I can't remember his name either.
Yeah.
His son actually ended up taking over in the next Mission Impossible show.
Right. Yeah.
Barney was the name of the character.
Morris. Greg
Morris. Greg Morris.
Yeah.
And his son, I think, is Phil Morris.
Yes. Yeah.
So Barney, the electrician of the group.
That's right. He's the gadget guy.
The gadget guy. He was from beginning to end.
Yeah. So those 2, I think those are the only 2 who survived the entire run of the.
And even made a cameo, on the other show, the Mission Impossible show.
I don't think they ever made it. They had any cameos in the movies, in the Tom Cruise movies, but
no. They actually offered Peter Graves the part.
Right, but he said.
But he said, "There's no way that my character would do what he's doing in this film."
Exactly.
Not to give spoilers.
Yeah.
But they ended up giving it to John Voight.
Yeah. So, anywho. So, my 2 honorable mentions are actually the motion picture the first movie, Star Trek: The Motion Picture,
Mhm.
and Star Trek 2009, just because they kicked off their respective eras of Trek.
Motion
Generations.
picture deserves an honorable mention.
Yeah,
Yes, it
yeah,
does.
yeah,
I had that on my list of honorable mentions as
yeah.
well.
And I agree with you. Yeah, the costumes were awful. Very dull. And a lot of, unfortunately, what happened with the pacing of the movie, why it seems so slow and everything, is because Paramount was so eager to cash in on the whole Star Wars phenomena that they just rushed it into production. They said, "We got to get this out. We got to strike while the iron is hot and all that." And so they rushed Robert Wise to wrap it up as soon as possible.
Hmm.
And so he didn't really have the time to go back and edit it properly. And so a lot of the effect, like I said, the effect shots just went on and on, like the tour of the Enterprise, and then the whole going through the V'ger cloud at the end of the movie,
Hmm.
or at the midway point of the movie, and all that. But he was able to go back and re-edit the movie, and so we have the director's cut, which is a lot better. Still a little bit slow, but that's just like I said, he's old school director. Back from the time when you could do a slower paced movie. But it works a lot better. They went and
Well, he
redid
is
some of
from
the
the time where
effects.
movies were so long that they had an intermission.
Oh yeah, exactly. But yeah, but it's a lot better. If you are going to watch the first movie, watch the director's cut. That's the one you need to watch.
Okay.
So
I think I've seen the director's cut, and it wasn't that much of an improvement to me. Uh,
really, oh
but yeah,
well,
I'll
yeah,
maybe I'll check it out again.
yeah, check it out. Nothing
It's
can
been a
be done
while
about the
since I've seen
costumes,
it. So
however. So you're still going to have those boring beige costumes.
that was the last episode of Star Trek Continues. They showed them moving to those outfits, which I thought was hysterical. I don't know if it was
Yeah,
actually intentionally like a slap in the face kind of thing, or
no, I
because
think
he
they
actually
really
makes a
wanted it.
comment like, "Oh yeah, I'm getting accustomed to it."
Yeah, yeah, but they gotta have to. I mean, and I gotta say, as far as a prequel, that little independent production, quote unquote amateur production, was actually better than a lot of actual movies that I've seen.
Yeah.
And they really tied the two things together really
Yes.
well, and
Yeah.
explained why
Explain why
Spock
Spock
went
left,
back to
went off.
Vulcan, and
Yeah.
just all, I mean, it really did a really good job, and just the plot was very well done. And yeah, you see the
People who were
transition from,
involved with the original track said, "You guys get it.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
writing scripts that have a message to them. It's a positive message. And you get it." And
yeah.
again, the
Well, a lot
way
of
that they
the,
made it look exactly like the first
yeah,
time, the
yeah,
lighting, the sets, everything was exactly like the first
yeah,
show. It was awe inspiring. I mean, it was just
yeah,
I dropped my jaw dropped when I watched the first episode. I was like, oh my
yeah,
god,
yeah.
man, they nailed it. They absolutely
They've been
nailed it.
brought back Apollo.
And it was so easy to do the
Um,
typical Kirk, over the top Kirk. And
yeah,
no, Vic Mignon played the lead character. He's the guy that created it all. He played Kirk, and
yeah.
and
You
he's
can
he
tell
just
a little
he's
bit of
it
Shatner
straight.
in there, but not, yeah, but
He
not
plays it
not a
straight.
parody. Plays it straight.
Yeah,
His voice is a little higher than I think,
yeah.
but
But you
yeah,
get used
kind
to
of,
it after a while. Yeah,
you
after
kind
an
of overlook
episode or
that.
two.
But everybody, I mean, the entire cast was really well chosen, and really
Yeah.
do their parts really well, and the sets are immaculate. I mean, you really feel like you just went back in time to the '60s. So
Again,
yeah,
if you're a Trekker and you haven't seen it, you should treat yourself.
yeah,
You should just
they're
go
all on
ahead and watch
YouTube.
it.
All on
Yeah.
YouTube. Just look up Star Trek Continues, and there you go.
Yep.
All right. Well, there you go.
So, are we doing Guillermo del Toro next time? Are we finally doing it, or
Yeah. Yes, we're doing Guillermo del
it's
Toro.
been requested?
It's been requested.
It's been requested.
Let's honor the request.
All right.
And I found this, which is
Yeah,
by
there
John
you go.
Larroquette.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, there he is.
How
John
could
Larroquette.
Maltz.
Yeah,
how
playing
could
Malt.
anyone recognize him? I mean, he
I
looks so
know.
different.
His voice.
Okay,
voice.
it's the
That's how
voice.
That's how I realized it was his
Yeah,
voice.
yeah.
I said, I know that voice from someplace, and it's because I had just seen Stripes, where he plays the
mhm.
commandant or the
Right, yeah.
the guy
Right.
who's the captain at the where they go to get trained.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just had to put that up there. I love him.
That's
And I looked
awesome.
at the credits and I was like, Larroquette, I know that name. Well, oh, Night Court. Yeah. Oh, hey, I just watched Stripes.
Yeah.
Maltz.
Maltz.
I forgot that name. That's so funny. Maltz.
There's a joke in there somewhere about chocolate malts.
They can make a planet.
It's
He doesn't get it.
I know what the joke would be. It would be something about chocolate malt balls. I mean, I don't want to offer it, but I feel like I had to.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You're
for that.
welcome. You're welcome. I'm here to serve. I'm here to please.
And
With the beehive hairdo. Thank you.
yeah, and John Chuck played the Klingon ambassador in Star Trek 4.
Yes.
Movie.
Well, he played. He was like
another,
a legal representative, wasn't he? From Klingon.
He was the ambassador. Yeah, it was the Klingon ambassador. That's what they called him.
Okay. All right.
There shall be no peace as long as Kirk is alive.
Yeah. Holmes and Yo-Yo.
Holmes and Yo-Yo. That's right.
He actually played Herman Munster, I think, on a TV show for a little while.
He did. Yeah.
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 Shuck has quite a
They
career.
brought when they wanted to bring the show back, he played Herman.
I deny nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he sends Kirk to prison and Bones.
Yeah.
Too funny.
Oh,
Big conspiracy. Big conspiracy.
And it was first to have the Federation or the Starfleet conspiracy with the Klingons and the Romulans. And Michael Dorn, you got to mention Michael Dorn, who played Worf in Next Generation, plays like an ancestor of his,
right?
Who defends Kirk and Spock. They're a court appointed lawyer.
Yeah, and he's like his grandfather or something.
Yeah, something like that. Because they wanted to bridge that gap, So.
They were really hoping at that time to connect the two, to connect the Next Generation with the old generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oop. Oh, time to go.
Hold on. Hey, I'm on the show. Talk to you later.
Okay, good. Have a wonderful time. Bye.
All right. Okay.
Thank you. We're having a great time. And on that happy note.
The special appearance by Dennis Tardan.
Oh, was that Dennis?
Yeah.
His AI told him to call.
Yeah. Call the show. Make a fuss. So anyway, all right. Well,
all right.
That's Star Trekking.
That's our Star Trek movie episode.
Yep. Did we lose our
Miss Renee?
I'm here. I'm definitely here. Thank you.
Beam into our screen here.
Yes, that's right.
Holodeck.
Yeah, I love seeing that. Let me take Rory out for 1 second. I didn't mean to, just so that we can have the full experience there. I wish Rory should have
done the window at the front of the
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I'm wiping the window.
Okay. Wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. Okay, that makes sense then. Okay.
I'm on the outside of the ship, just
I'm
wiping the bugs
excited
off the shield.
I'm excited for next week with Guillermo del Toro because I'm just going to say in advance, because since I'm not one of the guys, I don't have to be secretive. Pan's Labyrinth, it's so impactful and it creepy and beautiful. And I usually don't like movies that are that dark, but let me tell you, that one has stayed with me ever since I saw it. And it's incredible. And the way, and I saw the whole behind the scenes. I think it was like a mini doc, and how they worked with the horses and it's just, wow, it's incredible. And that's when I really started respecting his work. And I said, wow, whoever did this. And that's when I learned more about him. That was like my gateway drug into Del Toro.
Awesome. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So we'll have more to say about Mr. Del Toro next week.
And love to John Larroquette. John, if you're watching this, we love you. You're amazing.
Exactly, yeah.
I do love him. He's amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
Bye everybody. Well, I like these late editions. You know, we don't get as many live viewers, but I'll tell you, there's something very sweet about the late night ones, because I think we get a little deeper maybe and feel a little freer. We don't have as many live. I love live audience members though, and we want to greet the replay squad who's watching us tomorrow. We were here late. You didn't miss us at 6. We'll be back at 6 next week on Monday.
That's right.
Good.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Briefing room. We're doing Tarantula.
Oh, Tarantula, and I'm arachnophobic, so that's going to be fun.
Perfect. And I think Sergeant Havoc might be on that.
He is slated
because
to be on
that. He has to be
big bug expert that he is. So
I won't sleep for a week and a half after the airing of that show. So people should tune in.
Just color.
It'll really pop. It'll really pop into. Oh gosh, so scary.
Yeah, Leo G. Carroll was over a barrel when Tarantula took to the hills.
Tarantula took to the hills.
All right, creepy crawly. Good night, everyone.